Welcome to Don't You Two Read, a podcast where two sisters talk about all things books.
We're just two girls who found ourselves texting about books on a daily basis and thought, why not turn on a mic?
We'll be talking about our recent reads, a weekly bookish topic, and what we're looking forward to reading next.
So grab a cup of coffee and maybe even a snack and be prepared to take down your TBR and add a lot to it as we talk all things books.
I'm Hilary, a mom in Oklahoma, and I do not finish books.
And I'm Hannah, a stay-at-home mom in Texas who just had a million Libby holds all flood in all at once today.
This is episode 12 of season 1, and welcome. We are so glad that you're here today. Today, we are going to talk about our recent DNFs. We're going to talk all about what we think about DNFs and what we have DNF'd. So it's going to be quite the list for us. So we can't wait to get into that. So, Hannah, how was your reading week? I know we had just talked about the Libby holds. I was just texting you, like, I don't know what voodoo they have in their systems, but I was telling Hannah, it's so weird because I'll have because they only let me have 10 holds, I guess. Is that how everybody's are? Yeah.
No, some have more, but yes.
Oh,
My
okay.
Texas one has like 15 or 20. So
Okay.
they're different, but yes, 10.
Yeah, so
10
you
is
only have so
Oklahoma.
many you can do. So I have my 10 holds, and so they're very particular, and it's hard because you're like, okay, I have some,
Mhm.
future releases and some backlist, but they're not available. I have it
Yeah.
planned out. I tried to, but it never works. My system is trash because I had one that was like, oh, it's going to be a month. You're way behind, way far behind. And I was like, that's fine. I'll just read something else. And I kid you not, I was like, "Man, I wish I could read that book, but it's not available." The next day, it was like, "Being available." I'm like,
Mhm.
"How?" I was 4 weeks or whatever behind. How is it available all of a sudden? And then literally 2 when I was in the pickup line at school, 2 became available.
Do you borrow them or do you push them back?
No, I had to push him back because I already accepted another one after,
And that
'cause of this, and I'm like,
literally
I can't finish that many."
it
I mean,
happens.
maybe I can, but then I'm like, "Well, what if I don't?"
Yeah, that happens to me, and it happens to me every time where like you said, you'll be waiting like a long line and then one will come in and then I hit accept, because you can delay it or you can accept it. So I am like accept. And then the second that I accept it, it's like boom, 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 all these other ones that I would have much preferred to have like more ready. And I'm like, I'm mad. Like, I wanna say bad words because I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And because I downloaded because I accepted it, I'm like, "Well, now I don't wanna get too many," so then I push them back, and then it's like, 3-month wait, and I'm just like, ugh. And then this is me, total clown status. I don't know that anyone will be like, relate to this, but I will put holds for, like, the ebook and the audio, and I will push things back until they line up. So like if the ebook comes in and the audio says I still have 3 weeks, then I'm like, okay, then I'll let the next person in line take the ebook while I'm waiting because I want them to kind of line up. So yesterday I get the audio for a book and it said the ebook was still 4 to 5 weeks till my turn. So I sent the audio back because I was like, okay. And then today, the ebook said, your turn, ready to borrow. And I was like, and then I clicked the audio to see like where I am in line for that now. It said 3 months. And I was like, I hate everybody.
That's why I said sometimes I think it's worth it just to buy it, like, buy a Kindle book because that is just this circus of
Yeah.
timing things out. See, that's what happened is I placed a hold for the new Jessa Maxwell book, the lady that wrote The Golden Spoon, and
Yes.
I got it. I got it, but I was like, "Man, I really feel like I'm in the mood for book 2 of Caraval." But that one again was months, which is crazy that Stephanie Garber's books, I don't know if you've noticed, all of them, they're all backlist, all of them,
Mhm.
and they all have long waits. There's, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So, I was like, well, I'm on hold for the second book in that series. I really feel like reading that book. That's what I want to read. But the Jess and Maxwell came available, and I was like, okay, I'll read that. And the next day, it was like, hey, Legendary's ready. I'm like, oh my. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do Legendary. And if I miss out on this other one, oh well.
Yeah, that's my life. But reading has been really good though. Like I have like been thriving. I've been liking my books and I'm on a really good streak. So I'm happy about it. I mean anytime that I feel like I start thinking about a book that I'm excited about, I'm like, nope, no, mm-mm. We're not gonna be excited. I'm like, don't think of what it could be. Don't get happy. No, because I just have to just go into it not excited. But
You know
so
what's
far, so
crazy
good.
is the last book I read, I was so excited about. It was not on my short list, but I was very excited. And I was like, okay, I'm got into it, and it was fine. It was just okay. And it took me forever, like a week to read it, which is a long time for me. I know some of you are like laughing at that, but it took me a long time to get through it. And it was 400 pages, which again, I feel like that's a short book. And it
Yeah.
took me so long. And then this next book I'm on, I'm actually really loving it. And it's 480 pages. And I'm already like 70% in a couple days. So it just
Mhm.
shows you like whenever you find something that you're jiving with, like,
Mhm.
you can fly through it. It's
Yeah.
crazy when something's just like, "Meh," you just I struggle, at least. I really struggle with pushing through and, um, making myself finish it, which is a good segue
Mhm.
into what we're talking about today. We're talking about DNF. And so for you, those of you that don't know, DNF, which is funny, we just talked about this at work about DNF. This coworker, she was talking about a book that she was on, and she's like, "Oh, I don't like it. Like, I just don't like it. I'm reading it and I just want to like it and I just don't. And I'm stuck in it and I just never want to pick it up. And now I'm stuck because I want to read something else, but I have to finish this."
Mm.
And some other girl's like, "You just need a DNF." And she's like, "What does that mean?" And so we were like, "Oh, let me tell you what a DNF is." So DNF means like do not finish or did not finish. So you know what's interesting is I feel like this is something I do quite a bit, but apparently a lot of people don't do this or
Mhm.
have a lot of mixed feelings about this. So what are your thoughts on DNF? Have you always done this? I know you do now.
No, I feel like I never would DNF. Like in the past, I would push through them and rarely. I would say very, very rarely. I know because I remember I read that Olivia Blake book, The Atlas Six, and I DNF'd it, and that was like for me at that time, which was like several years ago, it was like unheard of for me. And I DNF'd it for content purposes that I did not like. And I DNF'd it. And I remember I was like, oh, like I really did not want to DNF. I wanted to finish and push through. And I don't know, at that time, I felt like, I don't know what, I think it's probably personality type that I'm like, well, I started it, I have to finish it. Like almost like checking a box, which is dumb. Really dumb. I think I have recently, like I've done it more as I've evolved. And then like as of like this summer, I have been DNFing left and right. Like so many DNFs. And I sometimes I feel a little bit bad, but most of the time I don't. Most of the time I'm not sorry. I'm like if I have been questioning, do I want to keep reading? Like I DNF it after I've already questioned that probably like 5 times. So
Mhm.
it's like it's done. At that point, it needs to be done.
So I have several questions, I think. At what point do you decide, like, what makes you decide, like, I'm gonna push through this book even though I'm questioning it, and then or you're like, "No, I'm not doing it."
There's certain things. So in the past, my standard was 50%. I would say, okay, I'm gonna hit 50%. If I don't like it by 50%, then I'm done. Now I don't. I have no limit. Like I will try to make it to like 25, but I don't. And I have stats that we can talk about later that
Oh, yeah,
Story
yeah.
Graph has. But so for me, when I push through, I will say if I have an arc, then I am more likely to push through. And everybody does it differently, to each their own. If I did not finish a book, I'm not going to say that I finished it. So like NetGalley has it
You
where
won't count it as like
no,
a review.
no, and like because it'll say they have a box that says I'm not going to finish this book. So to me,
Oh.
so when I have clicked that in the past, it counts against your percentage. So,
Oh, okay, yeah.
so then other people, they will rate and review it as a DNF. Do you know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
loophole. It's a
Yeah.
loophole. And so for me, the rule follower that I am, I feel like I want to do it. Like that's what they're looking for. They're looking for feedback. So I'm going to push through. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to rate it and review it whether I liked it or not. So that's typically what I do with arcs. I will push through. With books that are for me and for my free time, no. I will DNF if I'm just not feeling it. If I'm not in the mood, if I don't like it, if it's just making me like mad, then I'm just like if I have no desire to pick it up, I will question if I just need a DNF at that point. But what about you? Do you feel like you're more likely to DNF if it's not an arc, or do you feel the same either way?
I will not DNF arcs. I don't DNF arcs. That's my
Okay. Yeah, see, same.
my standard. But I've significantly cut down on what I request because of this reason. Just have two that I need to do, but they don't come out till later in the year. But I'm not going to DNF them. So that's the one thing I will push through just because I'm like, well, I said I was going to read this and review it. I'm going to read and review it. And
Mhm.
I, I don't know, it's important to me. Even if it's a bad review, I will finish it. But other than that, no, I have no standard at all. I think in the past, like after college, so I've told people like I didn't read for fun in college at all. Like all I did was 100% school. Every now and then on like a Christmas break, I'd read a book, but I don't know, it'd just be like a random book, but that's it.
Mhm.
And then I had my daughter, and it wasn't until I had Noelle, I think, and Noelle was a little bit older, like a few, two or three, two maybe, that I started reading a little bit again, probably because she was like not gonna die if I turn the other way. And so I see like pictures in my photo albums, like I was reading again. And so but I didn't read that much. So I only had like a handful of books, like 5
Mhm.
maybe in a year. And so I remember in those days I read like A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes because I was like, "Oh, Hunger Games." I didn't know what to read. They didn't have Bookstagram. I didn't have book podcasts. I didn't have, YouTube. It was
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, Hunger Games. I'll read that." Sure. And there was
Mhm.
no Libby, I don't think. Maybe there was. If there was, I didn't use it. And
Yeah.
so it was just kind of like I only had this one book to read, and so I kind of like would make myself push through. But sometimes it would take me like I remember I read that book, Midnight Sun, by
Mhm.
Stephanie Meyer from Edward's point of view. And it took me like 6 months to read because I was like, oh, this is very, very dumb. But
It
like
was.
I never stopped. I don't know. I don't know. And so I've evolved. So now that I read a lot more than 5 a year, which there's nothing wrong if that's how much you read, but I read a lot more. There are a lot of things I want to read. I think that has changed. So like again, in the past, I didn't know what to
Yeah.
read, or I was
Mhm.
like, it was just there. So
Yeah.
I read it. But now I'm like, no, there's like 100 books I would like to read right now. So
Mhm.
I don't have time to read everything. So I feel better about doing that
Okay, so
now.
here's my question, and I know what my answer would be, but I'm going to ask you. So, a lot of people feel that DNFs, you shouldn't talk about them because one way or the other, that they're negative or that they're like, it looks bad on authors or bad on the book. The first question, do you feel like it is beneficial to know what someone DNF'd or for you to share what you DNF'd?
I think sometimes, so okay, I think Hannah and I both do this. I don't review books that I DNF. Like one, I don't review them. So I'm not going on Goodreads or Storygraph and being like 1 star DNF. Like I don't agree with that personally. So I'm not going to give a bad rating to an author for a DNF because that, like as we'll talk about, there are so many reasons why. And so I'm not going to review it. However, I agree with like some, like if I value someone's opinion, I'll say that. I do like to see why maybe they DNF'd because it could, I mean, it makes a difference. Like some of them I'll talk, like there was a reason why I DNF'd it that I'm like, oh, if Hannah's like, oh, animal abuse, I couldn't do it. And I'm like, meh, that is not like a trigger for me. So I was really looking forward to the book, and that's not a trigger for me. So I'm like, okay, proceed, you know?
Mhm.
But if she's like, no, a child was molested and XYZ, or someone kills themselves and
Mhm.
whatever, I'm like, oh, I don't like that. I don't really feel the need to continue on with that. So that's where I see the value in it. But
Mhm.
like we're gonna say, just because I DNF a book doesn't mean it's a bad book. A lot of, as we'll talk about, it's like some of it's just me. Like it's just, as we have established, I'm a mood reader. So sometimes I'm like, not feeling it. Or I'm like, I'm too scattered and I can't focus on this or whatever. I have no limit of why I can DNF a book.
Yeah.
And there's no percentage either. I, like you said, I have no issue starting a book and reading 3 pages and then being like, no, this isn't for me. This is not for me right now. I'm not going to read something I hate.
And I do think, like Hilary said, like whenever you have TBRs that are like literally 100 books or more, it
Yeah.
gets to where you're like, there are other books that I could be excited about, or other books that I'd like to try, other books on Libby that are available. You know, like there's so many other things that that is what I tell myself, that I'm like, okay, you don't have to keep reading this, because sometimes it is still hard for me because of what Hilary said. I'm the same. I do not review books that I DNF. Same reason. I just feel like I'm not going to rate it. I'm not going to rate it. And the way that Goodreads is right now, they don't accommodate for that. I will say Storygraph does. Storygraph has it where you can select DNF. You can say an explanation. So I can say, I DNF'd at 25%, and it says, explain why. And so I love that. And that's where my notes today are going to come from. But I love to see people talk about their DNFs. I don't see it often, but one that I love is Mocha's and Mood Reads on Instagram. I don't know if you
Oh,
follow her.
yeah. I think I do.
I love her. Amy, like, I love her. She will post reviews, good and bad, like, and she's so nice. Like, she's very respectful about the reviews. Like, whenever she'll say it's not for me, like, she says why. And so I love it because she'll say DNF and it'll be like, DNF because she'll be like insta lust or whatever. Like, she cracks me up. I love her opinions. And I like seeing when people DNF because of reasons, because, like Hilary said, if it's like one of those words, like keywords that I'm like, oh, I won't like that, then I'm like, okay, I was interested in the book. She said, whatever. For example, one that I DNF'd, it was for a threesome. And so I'm like, I would want to know if someone DNF'd a book because there's a random threesome in the book, because I would be like, well, you don't have to waste 56% of a book to find out. So, anyway, I think that covers all that I want to say about why I like hearing about it and why I
I
DNF books.
I also want to say I love the Currently Reading podcast. That is like my favorite podcast of all time. And I listen to it faithfully every week. And I love that they have something they always talk about DNF. Like they're like they highly support it. And but they added this thing and they call it I don't know if they have an acronym for it, but they just say my DNF and then they have their not right nows.
Mhm.
So those are the books that they start and stop, and they're like, because there's some that you're like, oh no, never. I'm never picking this up again. This is not for me. But then
Yeah.
there are the books that you're like, not right now, but I'm not discounting it forever.
Yeah.
And because sometimes books come back to you at the right time. And I have had that happen before. And so I like that they kind of distinguish that.
Mhm.
Like, and I have before done that. Like, and I did not, I'll talk about it if I have one of those. But sometimes if that happens, I will on Storygraph or Goodreads switch them back to like my to read pile, like dump them back in there
Yeah.
just so like in case, because sometimes books just come back to you, and just
Mhm.
because you stop a book right now doesn't mean
Yeah.
forever you're never reading that book ever. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't mean a book can't come back to you later. So, but anyway, we thought this would be a good format because like we've compiled a bunch. So we plan to do like periodically like short list updates and then a DNF updates whenever we have enough. So, because we're not going to review these in the main show just because like what we said, we don't want to give a bad review to something that we haven't finished. But uh we thought this would be a good way to talk about it. So, I have quite a few. So, do you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Do you have your stats? Did you pull them up?
Oh, yes. You can go
Okay.
first. I'll pull mine up.
So, Storygraph, they collect all this data based on what you input. Now, this is only like from when I got the app, which was this year. So, you can take that into account. But it says the average progress through a book before I have DNF'd is 26%, and the average time with a book before I DNF is 8 days. Do you have yours?
Yeah,
What is
mine
yours?
is the average progress through a book before I DNF is 20%, and the average time is 8 days as well.
Yeah. See, we
Um,
tried.
yeah, I was like, I made this whole thing about 3 pages, but I do try, and some of them I feel genuinely bad about. Like, I know I
Okay.
shouldn't feel bad, but I do.
Okay, I'll start. Okay, my first one is I would say this would be like a not right now. So I'm starting from June. So this is like my summer DNFs. This is A Soul as Cold as Frost by Jennifer Kropf.
Oh, I DNF'd this a couple years ago too.
Yeah.
Why
Okay.
did you DNF it?
So here's my note. I stopped at 18%. I said it feels a little bit boring to me, and
That's what I
there's
said.
And
That's what
there's
I said.
4 people waiting on Libby. I'm almost out of time. I may continue in the future. I'm not quite sure yet. So this one though, I wouldn't say that it's like a no forever because it does sound interesting. Like it was described as Frozen and Guardians. No, The Rise of the Guardians, which I felt
No,
like
no. You know what the vibes it has? It has the vibes of Polar Express, which I know you're gonna
but
throw hands.
I
I
love
know,
Polar
but Polar
Express.
Express is a slow pace
Okay,
movie.
this was very slow. It felt, I'm sorry, it felt boring. And I did also think this is, I think, 4 books. I think it's four or five.
I
So I'm
want to
like,
like it, but
I
it was a
know,
little
I
slow.
know, I want to like it too. So I do. I'm like, I might try it again. I don't know, guys. All right, what's yours?
Okay. Mine was mine are from basically whenever we started doing the podcast, just around that time. So like when you said, like
Yeah,
from this
the
summer.
summer. Okay.
Yeah. So The Wife Upstairs by Freida McFadden. I really like this author. I've brought at least one of her books to the show already. Very super fast-paced thriller writers. Um, I DNF this one. I don't have the percentage, but I just said lots of infidelity vibes.
Oh, no.
Like, it's like one of those classic of like, I'm hiring you to be my wife's caretaker. Which like that Riley Sager book, do you know what I'm talking about? Like how he hires
Oh,
someone
yeah.
to be the caretaker. But this one is like, and she's like, and he's so handsome, and I'm so attracted to him, and he likes me. And I was like, no, I can't do it. Because at first I think the Riley Sager one, I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't become like,
Mm-hmm.
weird. And then I don't think it did, right? I
No.
don't think so. No. This one did. And it quickly was going down the Verity vibes at like the Colleen Hoover. Oh my God. I don't even want to talk about that book right now. But it gave me the same vibes. I don't know who wrote which one first, but I was like, I'm not doing this twice. So I DNF'd it.
Okay, next I have Court of Nightmares and Ruin. This is by Jessica Spruill. Okay, I
Oh
was,
no.
I know. I was obsessed with her other one, and so this one was a weird case because this was on Kindle Vella, which Kindle Vella I have thoughts about, but it's just weird. It's like episodes and it's odd. So anyway, I made it to 50%. It was very interesting at first, and I was like very into it because it's like a morally gray character and I don't know, fantasy, and I really, really liked the beginning. And then it got insta love. where it was like full on obsession. Like, I don't know, guys. Like Edward Bella, but like times 20. Like it's too for me, it was too much. I knew I wasn't like I was like, getting the creepy, icky vibes, and I'm sorry. So I was halfway and I was like, maybe I'd pick this up at another time, but like I was kind of just done at that point. So 50%, I really tried.
Is this like an episodes, Vella?
Yes, Kindle Vella, they release in chapters and you pay in tokens, but you buy tokens with money. It's a whole
You
I don't
paid
I
for this? No.
No. No, no. Amazon gave everybody gets
Oh.
tokens. So you
Oh.
probably have tokens too and you don't know it. Because they want you to do Kindle Vella and get hooked on it. But who does Kindle Vella? If you do, let us know. Because to me, it's a no. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a weird format.
Okay, so mine this is the one that made me sad. My not right now is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig.
Mm.
I this just says bored. I thought it was kind of boring. I talked about this on the last episode, so I won't too much. I was a little bored and I felt bad because literally very many lot of people that I really respect their reading opinions have said, like, it's the best book they've ever read. See, too much hype. I think it just set my expectations too high, and I want to try it again. I do wanna try it or continue on in this. I wanna try, I wanna like it, but I just thought it was a little boring, and I had to stop because I was like, "I'm not gonna continue on and hate read it." So, I'm gonna
Mm.
stop and see, like, maybe I didn't have the attention span for it right now, but yeah, I felt bad about that one.
Okay, my next one is Miss Lattimore's Letter by Suzanne Allain. So, my 5-year-old picked this out for me for my birthday,
I'm so
based
sad.
based on the cover. I stopped at 30%. Unfortunately, this did not work for me. There were so many names, so many characters. I was just very confused from page 1. I continued on, hoping that I'd be able to catch on, but no, I could not. There were a lot of names, a lot of characters. The POV changed amongst the entire cast the entire time, and I was the most lost I've been in a long time. My note says, "This book had me asking, am I really just this dumb?" Because I was so confused. Could not follow the story, could not understand what was happening. It might just be me, so definitely check other reviews for more insight. But I will say, I did look at other reviews and they said similar things. I'm sorry.
Okay, my next book is What Happened to Helen Rochester by Clare Gilmore. My note says, "To Fratty." Oh my
Oh, I remember. That
god.
was the one that was supposed to be like that I sent to you.
Oh, yeah, I saw someone do
I
it.
haven't
See,
read it.
here's what I need to start doing, is I need to start logging where I'm finding these recommendations.
Who who said? You're like, "Who told?"
The not right now's no, like, that's fine. It's just not for me right now. This one's a DNF, like, not for me. Yeah, someone was like, this whole reel, "If you want a good girl's guide to murder, this is in college, this is it." No, this was not it. This was like and I was looking at Goodreads to see, like, if there are any bad reviews. No, none. How is that possible?
Mm,
I or maybe the people just didn't finish it that didn't like it. Like,
yeah.
I could not get through it. It was like it literally had the vibes of, like, bros at a frat party. Like, she's showing up to frat parties, and people are, like, doing handstands on kegs, like, drinking out of it, and like, just yeah, man, just" I'm like, "I am in my 30s. I do not care about college people vomiting, like, slipping in vomit in the
Ew.
kitchen and doing handstands on kegs, and I just I can't do it. I couldn't do it. It was so much of that, and she's like, "I'm just such a great student," and, like, first chapter is her vomiting of, like, hungover,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I think she was maybe in grad school. I'm like, Pff, me in grad school? No. I literally had my child on the floor sleeping while I'm like banging out a 40-page paper. Like, I don't know. I just did not connect with this book at all. It was so far from my reality. I just couldn't do it. It was not for me.
Yeah, I
I'm just laughing at myself. Just you know, you know that have you seen Big Fat Liar recently? How there's
yeah.
like
No.
that I have. Noelle loves it. And it's like the the annoying guy that he takes the place of Amanda Bynes to the grandma. And she's like, Kaylee, you've grown so big and tall. And he's like, yeah, yeah, thanks, grandma.
What is what is that?
That's like the type of characters that are all in this book. I'm gonna find it for you. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Okay, the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
Plotting Summer by Jess Hilman. This was in the Falling for Summer series. I stopped at 27%. It felt very slow to me. I did not feel invested in the characters individually or them together. The plot did not give me a spark. And I did ask a few people who I know well who had finished it, and I told them, this is how I'm feeling. I'm this far in. What do you think? And multiple people said it was slow throughout the whole book to them, and that they felt similar. And so, anyway, if they had said, no, push, read it, it gets really good, like you're just around the corner, I would have pushed through. But because of the feedback, I decided to just stop while I was ahead. So that's the next one, Plotting Summer.
Okay, the next one I DNF'd was The Rule Book by Sarah Adams.
Did I know this?
I don't know. I tried it on
I'm like
audio.
the T.
Yeah, I DNF'd it at 25%.
Mm,
I just said the FMC, so the female main character, was so freaking annoying. Lorelai Gilmore to the 100th degree. I
mhm,
felt like everyone was a caricature, and already we're having communication issues at 25%.
mhm.
I think Sarah Adams is a very good author. I really like her. I just didn't like these characters at all. It was very annoying to me. Very like I am going to be goofy and silly, and I'm just so funny. And I just didn't.
And then she's like, but why does no one take me seriously?
But I dress like in pajamas every day, and no one wants to take me seriously at work. And I'm
I just
like,
want to
yeah, well,
say,
maybe stop dressing.
I, yeah, she had like a cheese hat. Or, no, I don't remember.
Like Lorelai Gilmore, though. She was like Lorelai Gilmore. Like
Yeah,
everything about it,
yeah.
which I
Hmm.
love Gilmore Girls, love it. One of my favorite shows. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like it was overdone.
And I am obsessed with Sarah Adams too. At one point, she was like my all-time favorite author, and a lot of her books are like some of my favorite romance books that like made me fall in love with romance. The Rule Book is for a lot of people. It was not for me. So it's one of those that, with that opinion Hillary had, it would have probably stayed that way because I felt like that also.
Yeah.
Okay. My next one is Blood and Steel by Helen Scheuerer. And okay, so this is book one in the Legends of Thesmar. So I got to 50%. I was really enjoying this book, and this is a book that I think could be really good for a lot of people. I stopped because I was told by my friend that the series gets very spicy in later books in the series. So I have in my notes that the plot is great so far. I was really loving it. I'm only DNFing it for spice content in future books. So I just didn't want to get invested in, book one and then it gets super spicy later, and I'm not it's just I'm not super into books that are super spicy. Like I've been evolving in that too, and I'm sure we'll talk about that soon. But yeah. So if you're looking for a spicy romance fantasy, I have heard good things about that book and that series. It was just not for me.
Okay. My next one is Kiss the Girl by Zoraida Cordova. This is in the Meant to Be series. She's the Ariel one,
Oh,
The
yeah.
Little Mermaid for Disney. Um, it was just okay. This one again was on audio, which will be the common theme in a lot of these. Um, it just was okay, and I just didn't care very much, and it felt kind of silly, which I know it's funny because you're like, well, it's a Little Mermaid, but I really loved the Cinderella one a lot.
Mm.
So I just think, it's possible for me to like it, and it was just not clicking for me, so
Did
I
you read
stopped
the
it.
Tangled one?
No, not yet.
I liked it. Okay, next I have Summer Tease by Martha Keyes. And this was also in the Falling for Summer series. I made this one to 22%. It's kind of the same as the other one. I have my notes say it was not pulling me in. The plot had a wild grandma. That was just not my favorite. Oh, and then I have a note. She called the officer a pig, and I also did not love that. Which I'm like, where are the betas?
Yeah, that's pretty
Okay.
bad. Okay, so my next book. This one I feel bad about. This is one of them that I feel bad. So it's just, I don't know if it's a DNF or not right now. I'm not sure. This is What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon. I gave it 43%. So I feel like that is quite a bit. Um, the reason I'm hesitant about this one is because it had all the elements that I like. Like it had time travel, it was like historical fiction a little bit, but time travel. The description gave me like Outlander vibes. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, like Irish history," which Outlander's Scottish. Um but anyway, I was really excited and it was not bad. Like I don't think it's a badly written book actually at all. I think it's very well done. It just was a little boring. I don't know. It just felt a little boring, and I don't know. I kind of question if that's just me because I'm like, maybe I just don't like smart books. Like, maybe I just like dumb things because I don't think it was bad at all. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I need to try a little longer. I'm not sure.
But also, I'm over here like, why? Like, if you didn't like it, don't feel bad. Like, just move on.
Well, a girl I know and really like really well, like she loved it. She was like, and see again with the hype for me. Apparently, it really influences me because she was like, I love this book. It was like, it moved me, it changed me. I had to, like, she bought the paper copy after she read it on her Kindle, I guess, or I don't know, listen to it. She's like, it was amazing. Like, her favorite book ever. And I was like, oh, well, I have to try it. And then I was like, I don't know. It wasn't bad or anything, but
Well, that's like Renee's book series, a book for everyone. Like, she's like, it may hit like that for some people, and then other people, it's like, nah. So, I don't think there's
yeah.
anything wrong with that. But
And
yeah.
you don't know like what people are going through too. Like for whatever reason, they might be going through
Mhm.
something in their life and they're like, wow, this really speaks to me. And you're like,
Mhm.
not me, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
My next one is Love Proposed by Megan Rogers. I talked about this last week, so I won't say much, but I did stop this one early. I just the plot, I didn't love the setup. So unfortunately I did not continue. I did say I have a note that said I may try again in the future, and that's because I think I loved book 1. The author seems so nice. And I know like I try to not associate authors with books because I can love an author and then not love their book, if that makes sense. The DNF I talked about earlier from Jessica Spruill, on the flip side, I was obsessed with her other book that I read. So, all that to say, I try to keep them separate because every book is just different and it may not just be
Yeah.
for you at that time. So, anyway, that's the next one I have.
Okay, this is the one I talked about in the last episode. Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Um, I didn't mention this earlier, but one thing I will try to not DNF is a book club book. If we're doing it for book club, I really, really try to finish it, even if I'm not vibing with it at all or from bored or I really try to push through. But this one I had to DNF. I DNF'd at 11%, which is pretty early for me, but I said way in a lot of whys, too much steam at 11% and reviews confirm. We had talked about how that sometimes if you're suspicious, you're like, man, this feels really steamy at 11%. And then you'll look at Goodreads and be like, what do people say about this? And then you see like some of the one-star reviews are like, I couldn't finish this because it was too steamy or whatever. That then it helps like, okay, like people are saying, or people are like, I read till 70% and it was like this the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, then I just probably need to stop. And so that's what I did with this one. Um, I did take a screenshot of one of the reviews because I was looking like this feels really steamy for this early too. And someone on her review said on Goodreads, I was expecting an intriguing fantasy world with a bit of forbidden romance. Instead, I got two sex-obsessed main characters and a flimsy plot to act as a backdrop to their lust-filled thoughts. I was taken aback to how quickly Camilla starts pining after envy around page 80, and pretty much every other chapter has some sort of sexual aspect to it, whether it be envy getting something over something she does, an allusion to the past sexual conquest, or other people having sex in someone's court. It got very repetitive and boring considering the book is 600 pages long. If you're looking to read smut, this might be the book for you, although I can't comment on the quality as it's not something I usually prioritize when picking my next read. And I was like, okay. Um, that confirmed it. I was like, this is just not for me. And so, yeah, DNF.
Okay. The next few books all are fantasy and ocean related. I was looking for this vibe of Song in Darkness by Jessica, which I was obsessed with. And so I was chasing that vibe, and that is what leads to the next several. You'll see. They're all the similar vibe, and they were all not for me. So the next one I have is Heart of the Sea, Mariah Chavis. I talked about this last episode also, so I won't get too much into it. I stopped at 20%. I just was really confused. The writing style, it was like a lot of flashbacks, random, like I couldn't follow the story. And I think like that seems to be my common theme. I mean, not really, I guess. It's either I'm bored or I'm confused. I feel like a lot of my DNFs. So this one I felt I just was not connecting with the way the writing style.
Okay. My next one was Unbetrothed by Candice Pedraza Yamnitz. Um, this was not because the book was bad or anything. I was really excited to read this book. She's an indie author. The issue I had was with the audiobook, which is apparently a consistent issue for me. I did not like the narrator at all. She was very, hang on, let me see if I can do it. And then she went to the store, and then they went down the hill, and she said that was crazy. And I'm like, why are you talking like that?
You're like, is this
Why
AI?
yeah, that's exactly what it felt like, and I don't think it was, like, I think it was actually, like, a real person, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's common for audiobooks, a lot of audiobooks sound like that, or, like, very robotic, and I don't
Mm.
get why. It really bothers me, though, like, it really, really takes me out of the story, so if I even immediately, like, if I start something and I hear something like that, a voice like that, I stop it because I think I'm better off just reading it, and the library at the time did not have anything else, so I have Kindle Unlimited again, so I am gonna give it another try eventually.
Next, Pearls of Salt and Sacrifice by Everly Haywood. This is a novella. I got 25% into this. So I don't think this was like bad. It was just, it felt very young. It was YA, but the main character is 17, but what do I have here? Let's see. I have my notes say it's young in the tone and in the writing. Some of the elements gave me a very young feeling. A big one was that the female main character, she's 17, She's in charge of a lot of people, leading a lot of people. It felt weird since she was so young. I think that I'm just maybe too old. Um, Other things, I don't know. There are sea elves, and so like it felt very wholesome. I don't know. I'm probably describing this badly. It just felt like a little too like I don't know, happy-go-lucky. I was looking for something a little edgier, maybe just for like I'm again too old. I think this would be fun for a younger audience or somebody who's looking for a lighter sea theme novella. I was just not invested at this time. So that is Pearls of Salt and Sacrifice.
Okay, my next one is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Thompson. This I found this from some you know who recommended this? The same girl who recommended Fireborn on YouTube. I don't remember what her name was, but that's when I realized this girl's tastes were not for me. She said the other book was like Fourth Wing but better. I did not agree with that. And then she said this book was like ACOTAR but better. But she said it was YA without the spice. And I was like, no, it wasn't very great to me. I didn't like it. It just, no. It did have Faze and it did have an artist main character, but I feel like that's kind of it. It was not, I don't know. I didn't like it very much. The Faze kind of gave me the ick factor, and they're kind of creepy and weird, and I just didn't like it. So I stopped it. Another audio.
So, yeah, maybe you need to not do audios.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
Like
don't,
ever. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
ever
ever.
again.
Yeah.
My next one is Unearth the Tides. So Erin Phillips. I'm like Queen Erin. This was on one of her recommended books that she loves. So I made it to 40%. I will say I was interested. The setup was that a royal guard, he is accused of treason, he's on the run. So I loved the setup, but then before I'm all kinds of this is why I have a script normally. This book is a retelling of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I have zero knowledge of, like none at all. So I will say that. So that was the setup. But then we go underwater, and then it was just like super boring to me. I was like reading it, I felt like it was so slow. I felt like nothing was happening. I was 40% in, and I was still conflicted. Like I was thinking, no, like I want to keep going because I'm like, when does that plot line, like he's on the run from treason, like when does that come back? Like, I don't know. So I was interested in some things, but then it was just like nothing's happening. And also, I had a medical procedure around that time. It might be that I was just not like in a good mental, all drugged up reading this book. So maybe I would pick it up again. I'm not saying it was like I would never finish it, but it was slow. I would say if you're going into it, it's slow and it's marked as slow paced. I see that on Storygraph. It says that it's slow paced. So FYI. Um, that's Unearth the Tides by Alyssa J. Zavalianos. I'm sorry. I probably said that all wrong.
I only have one more.
Me
How many?
too.
Okay, perfect. Okay. The last one I have is The Will of the Many by James Eilington. I was super excited about this one. It looked so good. Oh, this is another book club pick. I was very excited. And what happened was it was sold out everywhere. Like, I don't think Amazon had it. I don't like nowhere. It was not available. And then the library did, I don't even think the library had it. And so I used an Audible credit on it. And again, another audio. But I don't think this was the audio's fault because like the audio seemed like it was well done. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about me that I'm learning, and I don't know if this makes me bad or not. I like books from the perspective of girls better,
Mm.
I've learned. Like, I don't know. Like, I like dual point of view. I like that a lot. But if it's just a guy, I don't know. To me, it felt more like it was like a Roman Empire alternate history, kind of like that. And I was like, that sounds cool. It sounds fun. But I don't think anything about this was a romance or anything. So it felt more like a guy book, if that makes I know I hate to like stereotype stuff like that, but
Mhm.
it was like about the government and about I shouldn't say that's a guidebook at all, I'm sorry. But it was like about the government and about I don't know, like the prison system in there and a lot of different like categories of people and economic levels and conspiracies and overthrowing that and it was just a lot. It was a lot of information, and I really tried, I think I got, like, 25% or more, and I just didn't care about any of this world, any of this structure. It's not like there was I don't know, I guess I feel bad, but there it would've changed it if I was like, "Is there, like, some girl he's interested in?" Like, like, anybody that a side character that I like that makes it interesting or fun, and it didn't. It was just, like, this guy that was, like, a dull to read about. He wasn't interesting, he was kinda boring. I don't know. Like, that to me, like you said, confusing, but, like, to me, boring. If I don't care about something, I'm like, "I don't care." And I didn't care enough even I used my Audible credit, and I still didn't care to finish it. So,
Mm. That's how
I
you
don't
know
know.
it's
Those are
bad.
precious.
Um, my last one is Summers at the Saint by Mary Kay Andrews.
Oh, no. That was a new one.
I just didn't finish. This is what the story. I started it and I was like, okay, it's okay. Like the first chapter, I'm like, okay, following the setup, cool. And then we had another POV, like the next chapter was another POV. And I was like, oh, okay, who are you? Like we get another person. And then, but I was still fine. I'm like, oh, cool. Then we get a third POV and I'm like, oh, like we have another person. Oh, okay. And literally 6 POVs later, like we still 6 POVs in 6 chapters, and I still haven't came back to the first lady. So I don't know if there's even more POVs after I hit 6. On my notes, I say, I'm sorry, stopping at 10%. This is me being petty, but 6 POVs in 6 chapters. No, I'm out. And I just don't know. I don't have the mental capacity at this time to be following 6 POVs, if not more. I don't know, but no. And I said on my Instagram, I said, "Hey, if anybody has read this book and loved it, tell me. Like, tell me if I need to keep going." No, no, nobody said anything. And I did skim on Goodreads and I saw a few people I know read it, did not rate it super well. So, you know, it's not that I dislike it or have anything against it. I just feel like 6 POVs felt like a lot for me at this time in my life.
Yeah, that is, I mean wow, I don't even know what I just said right there. Wow. I'm like, on that note, have a good week.
So yeah, that's our DNFs for the summer. I'm sure we'll have more. We'll do another episode at another time. But as always, we love to hear from you guys. I know podcasts, sometimes it seems like it's one way, but follow us on Instagram, find us there. We post throughout the week and we love to hear from you. You can tell us why you DNF, why you don't DNF, what you feel about it, whatever. If there's any books that we mentioned that you are like, no, you're totally wrong. It's amazing. You can tell us that too. We will not be offended. So I guess that's all we have to say, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. If you've made it this far and didn't add this episode to your DNF pile, thanks a bunch.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode for the Don't You Two Read podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our recently read books and hopefully getting to know us better as we begin this podcast journey with you guys.
We will be including timestamps in the description on every episode so you can check there for books or products that we mention in today's episode.
Be sure to tune in to our next episode when we will be chatting about all things books. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Don't You Two Read Podcast, and you can find me at Hannah Reads.
And I'm at Hilary Reads. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a moment to follow us? You can also rate and review us wherever you listen. And as always, please share this with all of your bookish friends.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we hope you have a magical week filled with 5-star reads.